Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. I'm Nick, and we have Harrison with us tonight. How we doing, bud?
Awesome. How we doing, Nick?
Doing all right. Doing all right. Just started my summer job this week, so doing summer camp with kids. So it was fun. Good first day, but hot down here in North Carolina. So
you mean teachers don't get the whole summer off?
yeah, when we complain that we don't get paid enough, and so well, you get summers off. It's like, well, no, now we have to go find another job. Thanks, guys. But anyways, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, that was a sore subject.
Yeah. Before we get going, make sure you follow and like us on Facebook. You can also follow on Instagram. You can subscribe on YouTube. You can also listen on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.
Can I just say before we dive in, Nick, I'm really appreciating the Expos hat tonight.
I had to. I haven't busted it out in a while, so it was time.
I love a good Expos hat.
Especially after the Jose Vidro debacle that you and Sean had last week. So thought I'd pay homage to that. So
yeah, thanks for the reminder. We only get the easy ones.
Yeah, that's right. And I listened back. Like Sean got a pretty few tough ones too. So I don't want to hear it from him. But anyways, all right. Let's jump into this Pat Hoiberg umpire discipline. Now, the discipline hasn't actually come out. We don't know what the penalty is. However, he was investigated for this in spring training. He hasn't been on the field yet. From the article that I read, that he hasn't seen Major League time yet this year. So I guess that's the discipline, because he's claiming in a statement, he said that he never bet on baseball. He protects the integrity of the game. And if you look at some of his umpire report cards, like he does. Like he's a really good umpire.
He was 100% accurate in the World Series a couple years ago. Like he is one of the better.
So I don't know how his name came up or whatever. It doesn't matter. MLB's investigating it. He hasn't been on the field since then. What's your take on this whole thing in like how MLB's handling it / what is this going to do for the game if things are found out?
Jeez, how MLB's handling something. Usually the answer is just wrong, but this one's weird. And I put a video on our Facebook and Instagram page the other day with just kind of a quick update and a take on it. But first of all, Pat Hoiberg is one of the good guys. He is very well respected around the game. He's one of the highest ranked umpires. He had a 100% perfect accuracy game in the World Series a few years back. So like this is not one of these bottom of the barrel bad umpires. Like he is a genuinely good umpire. So before we rant about bad umpires, he's not one of them. But what's interesting with this one is that, as you mentioned, he hasn't been on the field all year. And honestly, like you wouldn't know that. Like I don't pay close attention to like who's got what assignments or what when. You just kind of know the names and they're out there somewhere, and you just assume they're umpiring. But he's been MIA. And then you find out they've been investigating this for months. And now they come out with this vague description of discipline, but we still don't know what he did. So the other weird part is that like this has been going on for months. We don't know what he did. We don't know what the discipline's going to be. We don't exactly know what we're looking at here. But in typical MLB fashion, they throw you a little breadcrumb and then sit back and go, gee, what could possibly go wrong? And now fans are going, oh my goodness, are these guys fixing games? Are they changing outcomes? Is this Tim Donaghy all over again, but in MLB? Because you've got to think about it. When you look at the bad strike calls, the really quick trigger ejections, we'll get into another couple that were just horrendous this week. Now the fans are kind of going, huh? Like, are these guys trying to change the outcome of games? Like, is this some way they're playing with things? And what MLB can't have is the fans questioning the integrity of the game. Right. And not giving the full story is just making fans question what the hell's going on, because it doesn't look good.
Right. He said, this is his quote, and it's relayed by Jeff Passan. So, I am appealing Major League Baseball's determination that I should be disciplined for violating the sports betting policies. While that appeal is pending, it would not be appropriate to discuss the case. That said, I have devoted my adult life to the profession of umpiring, and the integrity of baseball is of the utmost importance to me. I look forward to the appeal process, and I'm grateful that the Major League Baseball Umpires Association, the union, is supporting me in the appeal. So again, kind of another instance of the umpire union being strong, which
100%.
we have known. But this is what the union's made for, is to protect guys like this. Is he falsely accused? Correct. We don't know. Like we don't know any details on the gambling allegations. Like they've kept that pretty tight, which is unlike.
We knew what the players that have been suspended or banned have done like right away. After months, we still don't know what he's done. So on one hand, you're right. Kudos to the MLB Umpire Association for protecting one of the good ones. But at the same time, like, then don't just tell us then tell us nothing if you can't tell us everything. Because now you've just hung this man out to dry over what maybe is something as simple as he played in the fantasy football league. If we find out that this is all going on because he was part of a fantasy football league, or he made some bets on like DraftKings daily fantasy football, I don't care. Like don't get everybody stirred up over that stuff. But this is another example of how MLB's kind of invited gambling into the game more and more sponsorships, more cross promotional stuff, more activity, and now all of a sudden you're seeing the effect of that.
Yeah.
When DraftKings is at your events and advertising everywhere, and players are going to get caught up in it. Now you get umpires getting caught up in it.
Right. It goes later on in the article. It says umpires are subject to the same gambling prohibition as the MLB players. So those found to have bet on games in which they're involved, it's a lifetime ban. Right off the top, lifetime ban. If you bet on the games that you're involved in, boom, you're done. Betting on a baseball game in which the individual is not involved carries a 1-year suspension. So if he's betting on the other, 14 games that night and just not the one he's involved with, it's a 1-year suspension. I mean, sure.
Yep. Okay.
Umpires shouldn't be betting on baseball, period, in my eyes. Neither should any baseball players should be betting on anything in the game. But
yep, agreed.
At this point, if he did gamble, these guys know the repercussions. I said it last week. They know what the end result of gambling on baseball is. And they're, for the lack of a better term, gambling their future away by placing a bet. And they have no one to blame but themselves.
Good. They know the rules. They go over them every year. They're reminded of them. There's no surprises here. But I feel like MLB is just scratching the surface on this. And I feel like this is going to be one of those like death of 1,000 cut situations where it's like 1 guy, 3 guys, 5 guys, 7 guys, 9 guys. Like you just keep adding people to the pile. And we're going to look back at the end of the year and be like, wow, there's like all these people caught up in it. And there's going to be some names that are going to get caught up in this.
Yeah.
Whether betting on baseball, who knows? But this gambling issue is so much bigger than we're seeing. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We got 1 umpire, we got 1 lifetime ban, we got a half a dozen suspensions, or then you got Ipe going to jail. Like there's so much more happening underneath the surface here, because I think that these players have always been doing some stuff. They're still private citizens. Don't get me wrong. Like they're allowed to like play fantasy football with their friends and do stuff like that. Like they're normal people, but like gambling is becoming a much bigger part of what they do. And I feel like this issue is so much larger than we're seeing, and we're just beginning to see what's coming from it.
I totally agree. You think about, the whole Ipe situation. That's 1 underground bookie. How many underground bookies are there in this country?
Oh my goodness.
You know what I mean? Like there could be hundreds of other players placing bets with these underground bookies. It's just this one was uncovered, and the guys that we have named the last few weeks have been caught up in just that one particular bookie. So, I mean, like you said, it's the tip of the iceberg, and I don't know if MLB is going to want to dig into this deeper, because they might find stuff that they don't want to find.
I don't think they want to find it to that point, but
right. Or they just deal with it as it comes to the surface, I think is what's going to end up happening. But
yep.
But
I do think this Pat Hoberg, and I said this in the video, I think this Pat Hoberg situation is the worst case scenario for baseball.
Yes.
Here is a highly respected, highly rated umpire getting bagged for gambling. And in a year
possibly getting bagged.
Possibly getting caught gambling, whatever the situation ends up being. In a year where we've been focused on nothing but how bad these umps have been, any thought of impropriety or fixing outcomes just brings every fan's head to the Tim Donaghy situation in the NBA. And are we really getting a fair representation? And are the umpires changing the outcomes, or are teams getting screwed? It creates so many questions that MLB just doesn't need right now. They just don't need them.
And what I've seen online, like granted, it's online, so take it with a grain of salt, right?
Sure.
Most of the fans are on the same side of this coin. Everything you just said. Like, if this is a real thing, like everyone's like, we have an umpire problem. You know, it's been pretty 50-50, like bring ABS to the game.
Sure.
Robo umps, like, no, like, I want the human error. This is all pretty much one-sided. And all the fans are like, if this is happening, umps got to go. All of them. You know, like it's terrible. And I don't want that to happen, obviously, because there's too much that happens on a baseball field other than balls and strikes that we need humans out there for.
Yes.
You know, I mean, look at all these infield fly interference calls. Like, there's no robo ump in the world that can make those calls.
No, I mean, I'm not sure the humans can make the calls in some cases.
Fair.
Because there's some crazy situations,
But yeah, if this comes out that he actually did, if we are going to have a fan mutiny on our hands for sure, calling for all of the umpires' heads.
We got a comment on Instagram already, you know, bring on the roto umps, you know, at least we know we can trust them. And that's a door that MLB has opened. You know, they've now allowed us as fans to not just think the umpires stink, but to start to wonder if they're crooked. And you remember the fallout with the NBA with Tim Donaghy, how bad that was. And I mean, MLB cannot have a situation like that.
Yeah.
And you cannot have one of your better umps be the one that starts that, because the bad umps are already bad enough. But if they've got a reason to be bad, like, is CB Buckner intentionally bad because he's calling in his bookie before the games? Like, I don't know, but I guess I can start to wonder that now.
It's terrible. I hate it.
I do. It literally, like I said, it's the worst case scenario for baseball. This is not what they can't take this right now. They can't handle it right now. They don't need it right now. The game already has enough questions, and there's already enough umpire issues. You're just throwing gasoline on the fire, and it's such a bad look, just across the board. And this and like you said, this is just the beginning. I feel like there's so much more to come on this topic.
Yeah. And like I said, I think after we were done recording the show last week, is just like our podcast now, we're not even talking about like the baseball that's going on. It just seems like there's a huge news story that's like, I mean, this is kind of on the field, but it's an off the field issue that affects the on field product. Like, I would love to sit and talk about Yankees and Red Sox series, but we got so much other news to cover that, like, it's insane, right? I mean, sure, I can cut that stuff out of the show, but this is the hot topic right now is umpires. And it has been all year. And it should never, ever be that way.
Yeah. It's a shame because you've got some really good baseball being played. And yet every night the news is dominated by some ridiculous call, some ridiculous ejection, something. And it doesn't have to be that way. It is what it is that way right now.
Right.
For lots of reasons. But sadly, there is a lot of good baseball going on that's being overshadowed by some really bad headlines.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of great segue there, Harrison. We're going to get into this Lane Thomas ejection the other night. I don't know who the umpire was, but Lane Thomas takes a strike 3 call. I mean, it was a decent pitch. Umpire rings him up, and Lane Thomas just says something like, he just goes like, shit, or like he was mad at himself.
Yep.
And the umpire, boom, gone. And Lane Thomas turns and was like, what? He's like, that wasn't at you.
Yeah, I wasn't even talking to you.
Yeah, I wasn't even talking to you. He's like, that was me saying I'm mad at myself for letting that one go. And the umpire just, he's like, I don't care. You're gone. I mean, I don't know what to say about these anymore. I don't know if they were told to, like, listen, we're nipping this in the bud. As soon as you hear some chatter, toss them. because that's what it almost seems like at this point. You have the judge a few weeks ago. You have this one. You had Boone that didn't even say anything. It was a fan, and he just throws. You have the Marlins dugout that supposedly said something, and the umpire didn't know who he ejected. He just tossed somebody on the bench. It just seems like they've been told, like, hey, we don't want the chatter in the game anymore. As soon as you hear somebody arguing balls and strikes, I don't care who it's triggered towards, you toss them.
Yeah, we've gone to like a strict zero tolerance policy. Like if you like even make a gesture with your body, if your body language seems like you're mad, they throw you out. And it's a shame because they're trying to suck the emotion and the reaction out of this game. And Lane Thomas, he was mad at himself, and he even said it after the game, like, it was a good pitch. Like I should have done something, and it froze me, and I was mad.
Right.
He was just reacting, and you can't even react. It just
no.
It's again, another bad headline overshadows good baseball.
Yeah.
And a player that gets taken out of a game for really no reason.
Yeah. And that's a different reaction than what Machado did yesterday. Machado strikes out, he slams his bat down. Like, okay, now it's time to go, right? Because you're arguing, or you're complaining, I should say, crying, whatever adjective you want to use.
Machado's a crier, so let's go with crying.
All right, perfect. You're crying about either the strike 2 call, the strike 3 call, whatever, and you're showing me up. You can go. Yeah. But Lane Thomas was like almost showing himself up. Like he wasn't showing the umpire up.
Yeah, he didn't even turn his head. He just kind of looked down and said something, and then went to turn to go back to the dugout and gone. Like he didn't make any kind of gesture. He barely reacted. I mean, I'm not sure the average fan would have noticed he did anything.
No,
if not for the fact he got thrown out.
Right.
And then you got Machado who loses his mind and throws the stuff. Yeah, you got to go. You got Rob Thompson who comes out and is just screaming at the umpire from 2 inches away from his face. Yeah, you got to throw a guy out for that.
Right.
But for a guy just reacting to a pitch, I mean, we got to have thicker skin than that.
Yeah. Like I said at the very beginning of this segment, it's almost like you said, you framed it a zero tolerance policy. Like they've been told either by the union or some umpire meeting they had before the season, like if anybody argues balls and strikes, that's that. Like we're done. You're tossing them. I don't know. It's
I feel like this umpires union is moving to like cartel status. Like they make the rules, they do what they want. But and look, I understand that these guys are under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure, and they're getting crap from all directions. But like, it's part of the job. Like you got to have a thick enough skin to let a guy react and not throw him out after he says one word. Now, if Lane Thomas turned and said it directly to him, all right, maybe you got an argument.
Yeah,
he didn't even pick his head up. Like you saw him say something, kind of bobbed his head down and went to turn around, and like you just can't have that. Like
no,
the umpires are making their job harder by doing dumb stuff like this. Like just call the game. If it gets out of hand or it's obviously trying to show you up, react to that. But like let's just play the game, boys.
Right, and you can tell the difference, right? Because if Lane Thomas was mad at the umpire, he would have reacted a lot differently to the toss, to the ejection, right? He wouldn't have been like, what on earth are you talking about? He wouldn't have reacted that way. He would have been right up in the umpire's face if he was truly mad at the umpire. So, like I said, like you just toss them. You can't get their intent right away. No. I don't know. It's just, again, another issue that we shouldn't be talking about that we are. So,
it's a shame.
How does MLB go about changing this, or do they?
I mean, here we are in June. We've had a season and a half now of like really bad, questionable umpire stuff. A few months that have been really horrendous. MLB has done nothing at this point that we're aware of. I don't know that they're going to do anything about it. I think I applaud them for retiring Angel Hernandez, which was great. I wish they do that with CB Buckner too, make him go away. But short of instituting some sort of a ranking system or some sort of like reward or penalty system for the guys that are rated higher or lower, it's not going to change. They are who they are. They're protecting themselves and their peers. And the Umpires Association is very much on an island against MLB. They're clearly not working together anymore. There's this really, really uncomfortable like friction between them. And I just don't know that you change that unless you go in and actually put a system in place that either requires them or encourages them to be better, you're just going to keep getting this.
Yeah. Do you think the game is moving too fast for them? Like, i.e., the change in pitchers, right? Every pitcher's throwing 100 with 38 inches of horizontal or vertical drop. Do you think the game is moving too fast for them right now, and they feel like they're over their head trying to call balls and strikes and all the rules they have to implement?
I think there's a component of that. I think that the game is moving faster. Not only is the game flow itself moving faster, but like the pitchers are throwing harder with more break. The whole game just moves faster in general. So I do think there's that. There's a lot of rules they got to enforce. And I think the other thing too is when you put yourself in the shoes of an umpire, when you're behind home plate, you're watching not just the pitch, but you're watching for a balk, any sort of illegal movement.
The pitch clock.
You're looking at the pitch clock. Like you're working through 4 or 5 things at a time. While that pitcher is getting on the rubber and going to throw. It's not as simple as, was that a ball or a strike? It's about, did he come to a complete stop? Was he engaged in the rubber? When he made that move to first, did he actually move his back heel first versus his front? Like you're thinking about all these different things as it's happening. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in. But I do think there's a level of the game moving too fast, but I also think there's a level of some of these umpires that have sucked for 20, 30 years.
It's fair.
Like it's, if you keep doing the same thing, you get the same result, and you keep rolling the same bad umpires out there, you're going to get it. CB Buckner stunk 2 decades ago. His eyes aren't better than they were 2 decades ago.
Right.
So like, he's just going to continue to get worse.
Yeah.
And these guys know this is like getting on the Supreme Court. Like, once I'm here, you can't get rid of me. So I'm just going to hang.
Right.
And there's not a lot of incentive for these guys to get better.
Now, I have been watching the College World Series the last week, like pretty religiously here. And these umpires are good. I mean, these D1 umpires are good. However, I say this with a little caveat because there's no K zone.
Right.
So if I throw a K zone up there in the middle of these College World Series games, how good would I view these umpires? Right? So, I mean, like, I think the K zone has changed a lot. Like you said, it's added pressure. And you can truly see how inaccurate these guys are because we have, as the average fan, we have a gauge on which we can follow and track these umpires. So, I mean, a little bit is perspective, right? I'm like, wow, these D1 umpires are really good, and they call a good zone. But would I say that if there was a K zone present? I don't know.
Well, but like the pressure level is not the same. The oversight's not the same. And you got college kids who aren't going to necessarily turn and lose their mind at you if you miss a call. So that, you've got a kind of a buffer of safety there. But at the same time, like, and we said this ad nauseum on the show, we're not expecting the umpires to get every call right. We're expecting them to avoid the really egregious 5 and 6 inches off the plate calls that are so blatantly obvious, and to stop with these really terrible quick ejections.
Yeah.
Like if we could just get to a point where the biggest issue is he called a ball, a pitch, a strike that was like a ball off the plate, that would be great. Like, because that's always existed.
Right.
MLB's always had some level of error where a ball gets called a strike and a strike gets called a ball. Like, that's okay. That happens, and we expect that.
That's Greg Maddox's career in a nutshell.
Right. Right.
I mean,
and that was always the thing. Like, Greg Maddux always got a ball off the plate. Like, that was always, the umpires gave it to him, A, because of the movement, but B, because of the control. They knew he could hit a dime off on the backstop, so they gave him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
That's always happened in baseball. Always will happen in baseball. But what you see now that you didn't used to see, and maybe this goes to the speed of the game comment, Nick, is that you're seeing a slider that starts 6 inches off the plate and finishes 8 inches off the plate being called a strike. Like, it was never on the plate. Right. Never once was that a strike. At any point of its journey, it was never on plane to be a strike. It's the egregious calls and the really bad ejections. If we could fix the bad ejections and take away some of these egregious, just horrible calls, I am totally okay with a ball or a strike getting mixed up.
Yeah. And kind of to go back to the pitch clock too, right? Like, when these pitchers are getting down, right, the umps are watching the pitch clock. They're not necessarily watching the pitcher, right? It's like 2, 1, 0. And by the time he gets his eyes back to the pitcher, the ball could already be halfway home. Mm-hmm. Right. And what is it? It's like 0.0012 seconds for a batter to try to make the decision to swing or not. So
it's that 4/10 of a second from hand to catcher's mitt.
Right. So if the umpire is, focused on the clock and then trying to refocus back to the pitch, like he's probably going to miss that half the time.
Yeah, it's literally the blink of an eye. It's literally the blink of an eye to make a call.
Right. Unless it's right down the belt, there's a chance he misses it off the corner because his eyes are trying to readjust to come back to the pitch and call the pitch.
And the other thing, too, to keep in mind, we saw this with Contreras when his arm got broken. You got catchers setting up differently. They're squeezing in. They're positioning differently. Their framing techniques are incredible in the way that they can actually – they were showing a video of kind of looking down, and it's pretty deceptive when that arm movement comes back up with the ball where it looks like it crossed. And so it's the umpires are also working against some technique and some technical things that are also making it harder to determine. But again, some of these pitches, you give them a ball and a half off the plate, I'm not going to be upset about it. If it's 2 strikes and you get rung up on it's a ball off the plate, it's close enough you should have protected. And I get some of these hitters know the strike zone better than anybody, and they can work the strike zone better than anybody. But at the same time, it's like, guys, 2 strikes, you got to protect because you're letting the umpire take control,
right?
Versus you take control. So like, I don't feel bad when a guy gets rung up on a ball that's an inch or 2 off the plate. I do when it's Wyatt Langford who takes 3 straight sliders 6 inches off the plate. Like that's a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So.
But it's the ejections to me that are the most glaring issue. It's tossing guys for reacting at all.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like an ego trip almost. It's nothing to do with baseball at that point. But
no, it's not. It's these guys are putting themselves in the spotlight when they don't need to.
Yeah. All right. We're going to move on to some injuries here. We got a couple. Anthony Rizzo actually just came through the phone. I don't know exactly what happened, but he's out with an arm fracture for 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. Yep.
4 to 6 weeks. And then the big one here, Mookie Betts, fractured hand, hit by a pitch. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. It's not going to require surgery. So that's good news. 6 to 8 weeks is still a pretty good chunk of time. We're looking at mid-August.
Yeah, 6 weeks from right now takes you to like end of July. August. So yeah, you're early to mid-August most likely.
So that's going to bring us into this. Our buyers and sellers. Who buys, who sells? With the expanded playoff format, are there less teams selling than there used to be?
I mean, I think it's yes to a lot of those questions. I think that the Dodgers have already indicated they're going to be buyers because they've got Mookie Betts now down. They've got Yamamoto, who's out for at least a few weeks with a tricep issue. Again, like we mentioned when he came over, these Japanese pitchers always seem to have some sort of arm trouble in their first year. He's at least a few weeks. The Yankees had Rizzo go down, not a huge blow, but still not a good one. But I think you've got, the scary part is you look around the league, the Red Sox are 37 and 35. They're 3 games out of the wild card. The Blue Jays are 4.5 games out of the wild card. As bad as they've played, they're 4.5 games out. The Detroit Tigers are 5.5 games out. I mean, the Astros, as bad as their season has been, they're 7 games out. Like they're not in reality, they could make a run. So I feel like there's just so few teams. I mean, the Mets are a game and a half out in the wild card. I mean, let your brain think about that for a minute. As bad as they've been, I feel like the entire NL Central is a game and a half or a game out. Yeah. Most of the NL West is a half a game to a game out. Like except for the Rockies, forget about them.
Yeah.
But you in reality have like 75% of teams are still realistically in it. Like it's going to be hard unless you're the Rockies or the White Sox, Marlins, who don't have much to give. But and you look around, the Rockies are out of it. Marlins are out of it. A's are out of it. Angels are teetering on falling out of it.
They're out of it. Let's be honest. They're out.
Yeah. And the White Sox are out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 5 or 6 teams that are out of it. And they don't have a lot to offer. So I feel like this is a situation where other than the White Sox trying to dump some parts, there's not going to be much out there. And I do think the expanded playoffs changes the trade deadline because so many teams are still in it.
Yeah.
So I think the Dodgers are going to be buyers for sure. I think the Cubs are going to be buyers. They're struggling, but they're still in it. So I think your buyers are going to be the Dodgers. I think I can see the Cubs being buyers. I think the Phillies are going to be buyers because they always are. I think the Braves are buyers. I think the Mariners are buyers. And the Yankees are always buyers.
Right.
But your sellers, the White Sox and the Athletics. I'm not sure. And the Angels, but they got nothing to give you.
And the Rockies do have an interesting piece that I could see them move, and that's Ryan McMahon. He's a good player in that lineup. A team would be interested to put a package together for him. I agree with that list, but I am adding the Blue Jays on that list. I think as an organization, they need to tear that whole thing down and start over. With a shortstop going down, with your shortstop going down to Mookie Betts, I would not be surprised if they make a big push for Bo Bichette. I sat here last week and said Vladdy was probably going to be the one that's moved because you want the cornerstone guy, and which I believe is Bo Bichette at this point in Toronto.
Well, and that's a premium defensive position too, which also helps.
Right. And that's what I said. I was like, at this point, most teams have their shortstops locked down for the year, so it'd be harder to move a shortstop.
Yep.
However, your premier shortstop, your all-star, your MVP shortstop just went down for 8 weeks. So,
well, but they traded for Kevin Biggio. Like they got Biggio now.
Yeah. Well, whoop-de-doo. I see them making a package deal for Bo Bichette here. Because out of the other teams, I don't know if you'd get a decent shortstop off them. Jared Leto from the Angels is too young. He's got way too much control.
Yeah, the Rockies won't move Tovar because he's their cornerstone.
And he just came up last year, right? So too much control there. And he's the only one putting butts in seats in that organization. Sure. Marlins, I couldn't even name you who their shortstop is.
Tim Anderson.
Yeah, no. So I think
your boy Tim.
Yeah, I think at this point, if they do make a move for a shortstop, it's got to be Bo Bichette. I don't see.
Yeah, and worst case, you leave him there and just put Mookie back in the outfield when he comes back.
Right.
Because Mookie even came out a week ago or so and had said that the change to shortstop has been very hard for him, and it has been a struggle. It has been a grind. His defense has been okay. He hasn't been great, but he's also literally learning the job on the fly.
Yeah.
And I think he'd probably welcome a return to the outfield where he can play. He could just go right back out there and do what he does.
It's just crazy. Like, listen, I hate the Dodgers. They're my Yankees of the National League.
Yep.
Like, sorry, Dodgers fans. Sorry, Yankees fans. But Mookie Betts, man, is an absolute freak of an athlete to just go there, just pick it up and still put up the offensive production he was and solid defensively. I mean, like, there's not many guys in the league that are able to do that.
Agreed.
I mean, you got Rafaela in Boston that's doing it all right. Is he great at shortstop? No. He is the center fielder.
Yep.
But with Story going down, he had to plug in there, and he's playing proficiently.
Yeah, I mean, you won't lose because Rafaela's at shortstop.
Right.
Like, he won't hurt you. He won't hurt you to that level. Like Kike Hernandez hurt the Red Sox last year. Mookie's defense was, I want to say the defensive metric showed he was just a hair better than average at shortstop, which when you look at what he does with the bat, if he's an average shortstop, that's still a huge win.
Oh yeah.
And let's be honest, the guy can't be like elite at everything. Let's find something. The dude bowls 300 games. He can dunk. I mean, like, let's find something he's not like elite at and do that for a little while.
It's not going to happen, dude. He's probably like a world-class curler too. I mean, like, come on.
I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't
either. But yeah, I mean,
I do think this is going to be a tough deadline. I mean, and granted, we still got what, another
month and a half.
Yeah, 6 weeks or so to go. So
yeah,
I mean, more teams. You'll see more teams, I think, start to feel like they're out of it. I agree with the Blue Jays. We talked about them last week. I think for them, that's more of a decision that it's time to just change things up. But mathematically, I mean, literally, if the Blue Jays go have a good week this week, they could be a game out.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's ridiculous how I mean, as bad as some of these teams have been, to still be. I mean, the Red Sox are beating them 5-1 right now, but as bad as they've been, they're still in it. Like they're not out of it.
Yeah,
blows my mind.
Absolutely crazy. So
Nick, what about the Diamondbacks? They are clearly it's a World Series hangover and all kinds of things. Corbin Carroll is now hurt. That is one of those teams that they're a half a game out of the wild card. They're hanging on for dear life, but like, are they buyers or are they out? Same with the Giants.
I don't know. I think it's too early to decide on the Diamondbacks right now. They're such a streaky team. It's crazy. Like even at the beginning of the season when they were playing well or fairly well, they would put up, we saw that opening day, what was it, 14 runs in the third or something like that, and that's how they score. They score 5 or 6 in an inning and then they're done for the game. Like they're not like, they're relentless in that one inning and then it just seems like they go away. Or then they have like flashes in the pan. I mean, Ketel Marte is an absolute animal. He's been the only one that's been pretty much steady the entire year. But you have other guys, like they were hoping Suarez was going to be a bigger power bat than he is. He's only got like 2 bombs, 3 bombs. Like he's not putting up the numbers, a ton of strikeouts, which we knew we were going to get.
Yep.
Perdomo coming back does change that lineup. They got him back last week. And it is starting to turn the bottom of that lineup back over to the top. So they are starting to get a little bit of rhythm there. Jordan Montgomery isn't exactly, he's struggled the last 3 or 4 starts, like really bad.
Yeah, so he looked great against the White Sox, but so does everybody.
And dude, I could pitch left-handed against the White Sox and look good. So I don't know with them. I think I need a couple more weeks to see what the glaring hole is. But Corbin Carroll's just not playing like his rookie stuff. He's in a big sophomore slump for sure. I think he just hit the 200 mark.
Yeah, and then got hurt.
Yeah. So and he's day to day, I think, at this point. But
yeah, it's a side injury, so they're not really talking much about it.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's a great question for the Diamondbacks there. I still pull for them. I mean, they're my favorite NL team to watch. They're electric. When they're clicking, man, it is crazy with Walker, Gurriel, all of them down that lineup. Jock Peterson's been a good platoon in there. Like they're not missing a beat, but they're just streaky. That's it.
Yeah. So if the season were to end today, your final wild card team in the National League would be the Washington Nationals at 35-36.
Below 500 team making the playoffs.
Yep.
Nice.
Wild. And then you got the Reds at 34-37 and the Pirates at 34-37, a game back. The Cubs at 34-38, a game and a half back.
Dang. Well then.
The entire NL Central's in the wild card hunt. But the Milwaukee Brewers are beginning to kind of slowly walk away with that division.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. Like you said, I think the deadline will be interesting. There's either going to be like one big splash or nothing's going to happen. It's going to be a dud because everyone's fighting for that wild card spot.
Agreed.
Do you think they should push the trade deadline back a couple more weeks? Do you think July 31st is too early to determine how your season's going to go?
I think with the expanded playoffs, yes. I think July 31st is too soon because you still have 2 months of baseball. But I don't know that a couple weeks makes a huge difference. I think because these races can be so tight for so long, unless you go to like the end of August, which in that case you're expanding rosters and it's kind of a moot point. I don't know that it gets you anything.
I think if you push it to the end of August, then you run the risk of teams literally just selling the farm to get anybody they can for, you know what I mean? Like, I think if you push it too late, it kind of swings the other way where it's like, okay, right. I'll take Guerrero. I'll take Bichette. I'll also take, they're like literally just taking all the good players off the other teams.
Well, and then you got players showing up to play for 4 weeks before the playoffs start. Like they barely get acclimated to their teams before they're jumping into the playoffs. So I feel like the timing of it's right. I feel like you need more time, but you just can't give it. It's just, it's too, August and September are tough months.
Yeah, that's fair.
But absolutely. I do think that there's an insane amount of teams in it right now that I think we'll know a lot more over the next 6 weeks. But right now, man, there's a lot of teams still in it.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on, and we debuted a little segment last week where I give a player's name, and Harrison is going to have to tell me what team they debuted with according to Baseball Reference. So I will give the name, Harrison will give the team name, and he's got 45 seconds on the clock, right? So name the teams players debuted with according to Baseball Reference. Ready?
Oh, boy. All right.
Go. Doug Mirabelli.
Oh, geez. Texas?
No.
Cincinnati.
Giants.
Oh, Giants.
Steve Avery.
Braves.
Mark Wohlers.
Oh. Pass.
Braves. Ozzie Guillen.
White Sox?
Yes. Harrison Bader.
White Sox.
No.
No, where was he? Pass.
Cardinals. Oh, Matt Williams.
Giants?
Yes. Fred McGriff.
Braves.
No.
Expos.
No. Blue Jays. Andre Scalaraga.
Colorado Rockies. No.
No.
He got moved there during the expansion draft.
Expos.
I was like, no, he was the Expos because he got moved during the expansion draft.
Yep. So good. You got 4. Again, you're pretty consistent with 4.
I'm good with 4. Yep. Mark Wohlers, that one threw me.
Yeah, because I watched the Braves all the time on TBS because it was nationally, televised when I was younger. I remember him being with the Braves, but also remember his time with the Yankees there for a while. So
yep.
But
like Doug Mirabelli, I do not remember Mirabelli with the Giants. I knew he was somewhere weird to start, but I couldn't think of where. Yeah. I did not remember the Giants.
Yeah, pretty crazy. All right. So we also got some trivia here. Harrison's going to share the slides. But I came up with the question. So Harrison has not seen the questions here. So here we go. MLB trivia. First question. If you know the answer and you're watching, you can throw it in the chat. Okay. Who is the only MLB player to hit a grand slam from both sides of the plate in the same game?
Oh, goodness. I feel like I remember this one.
The background is a clue.
Right. So, not Chipper Jones.
Nope. It was against the Texas Rangers in Texas.
In Texas. Okay. I remember Billy Miller hit a couple of grand slams. I don't know if he hit him in the same game.
Yes, it was him.
Was it Bill Miller?
It was Bill Miller.
Oh, yep. Man, I remember him hitting a couple of massive home runs, a couple of massive grand slams.
Yep, 2 grand slams, both sides of the plate in the same game in Texas.
Wow. So I feel like did he hit home runs from both sides of the plate in the same game before? Other than that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure.
Interesting. Billy Miller. Yeah,
Bill Miller.
He was such an underrated player.
Yeah. Yeah. That dirt dog mentality that the whole team had all the time. Every single one of them.
Oh, just grinding at bats, and then he would surprise you and just launch one into the bleachers.
Yeah, speaking of dirt dogs, like I'm obviously a huge NC State fan, and both of Trot Nixon's sons are on NC State. So they went to the College World Series. They lost today, which stinks, but like all day Saturday, they just kept cutting to Trot Nixon in the crowd, and he's just sitting there looking like wicked mad, like wicked pissed off the whole time. But yeah, it was just like no emotion, but it was really cool to see him. But
yeah, Billy Miller was not your prototypical third baseman. He was small. He wasn't a big power hitter, but he made all the plays. He hit line drives in the gaps, and he wore you out. And he was such a great role player.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Next question we got here. Okay. Willie Mays was the second player to reach 3,000 hits and 500 home run mark. Who was the first?
3,000 hits and 500 home runs. So that would not be Ruth.
No. Ruth didn't get 3,000 hits.
Right. So he didn't make it the 3,000 club. I mean, there's only other player I can think of that would qualify would be Hammer and Hank.
It is. It's Hank Aaron. Hank Aaron was the first.
There's not a lot of guys that hit 3,000, have 3,500. Like that's a rare group.
See, to me, the timing of it, I would have thought Willie Mays reached it before Hank Aaron did.
I would have thought so too.
Yeah, but Hank Aaron reached it first, and then Willie Mays did. So
must have been like right behind him.
Yeah, must have been real close. So, yep, Hank Aaron was the first, 3,500. All right, next question. What slugger has the most career home runs among players born in Mexico?
Born in Mexico.
I'll even give you a hint here. He was like the first half of the home run chase in 98. Like he was in it for like the first month and a half to 2 months.
Was it Galarraga?
Not Galarraga.
In 98. Dante?
Nope. You're on the right team.
Rockies?
Yeah, Rockies. Big right-handed power bat. Third baseman.
Oh, we've been over this one before.
Anybody in the chat?
This one hurts. This was a trivia question we had a little while ago. Not this one, but something else.
He was in it, yeah.
Oh, who's the player?
VC are the initials.
VC. Oh, God, not at all where the path I was heading down. VC.
Yeah, it's not Vince Carter.
I say not Vince Carter. Not Oh my goodness, I don't know.
This is Vinny Castilla.
Oh, Castilla. Oh.
Yeah, Vinny Castilla.
I could picture him. I did not. I was nowhere close in the name.
Yeah, he was thumping home runs for that first like 2 months and then just kind of faded off.
He did that every year. He'd have like massive April and May and then fall off.
Yeah. So, yep. Vinny Castilla.
Vinny Castilla. Oh my goodness. I could picture him. I did not have the name anywhere close.
Yeah. So, all right, next one. In 1986, this player from the AL East team, became the first player to hit a home run on the very first pitch of the MLB season. Who was it?
Bucky Dent.
No. Remember, the background is a hint.
I know.
AL East
very
team.
First pitch of the MLB season.
He's the first player to ever do it. 1986.
So AL East, so it's got to be Red Sox.
Yeah.
It's red. Who would have hit leadoff in 86?
It's a guy that a lot of people think should be in the Hall of Fame and isn't.
From the 86 team, so Rice?
Not Rice. He's in.
Hit leadoff.
And he's in.
Right, he is in. That's right. He is in.
But it's another outfielder.
Baylor?
Nope.
Who else in that outfield?
He had kind of a little funky stance, too.
There's a lot of guys in that time frame that had weird stances.
I mean, facts.
Yeah. The 80s were a weird time for baseball.
Yeah.
Who else in that outfield?
Come on. You're going to be mad when you see this one.
I know. I'm trying to think of the outfield.
He's in the Red Sox Hall of Fame. It is Dwight Evans.
Oh, Dewey, of course.
Yeah.
He hit leadoff?
For that season, apparently. But, yeah. First pitch of the MLB season. Boom. Gone.
Oh, man. That one hurts.
Yep.
I never would have pegged him for a guy that ever hit leadoff.
Yep. All right. Next one. Okay. 2019 was the first time that 4 teams achieved triple-digit wins in the same year. Who were the teams?
So, 18, the Red Sox won. So, 19, let's see, were the Yankees one of them?
Yankees.
Dodgers.
Yep.
Let's see, Braves.
Nope.
Wasn't the Phillies then?
Nope. This team also, I believe, set the home run record, team home run record that year.
Was that the Yankees?
No, not the Yankees.
Oh, the Twins.
The Twins.
That's right, the Twins. That's right. They had that monster year.
Yep.
The Twins, and then I'm trying to think down through it. Nobody
AL West.
Say nobody else from AL East. West, it wasn't the Mariners. Rangers, Angels. Rangers?
Nope.
Wouldn't have been the Angels. Oh, Astros. Duh. That was
Astros.
Yeah, right. I'm going down the teams in the AL West. I'm like, oh yeah, the Astros, of course.
Yep, the Astros. So those were your 4.
Yeah, that's right. The Twins had that crazy season.
Yeah, was it 309 or 312? Some total
300 like and some, yeah.
Crazy. All right, next one. It is. Okay. Who was the first player to win league MVP and World Series MVP in the same season? So looking for the first one to do it. There has been others, but he is the first.
How far back we going?
63.
Oh boy. And the purple color, is that team related?
It's blue. It's blue.
Oh, it looks purple. Okay. First player to win league MVP and World Series MVP. Back in 63. I was trying to think back in that time frame.
Pitcher.
Koufax?
Yes, it was Sandy Koufax in 63. Yep.
I was like, nice. I'm like, pitcher. Oh yeah, I know who this could be.
Yep. So Reggie Jackson also did it in 73, Willie Stargell in 79, Mike Schmidt in 80.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
So
even more impressive for a pitcher to take league MVP.
Yeah.
Which
absolutely
doesn't happen often.
Right. All right. Next one. Okay. So this one's kind of a multi-step one here, Harrison.
All right.
Only 8 players in Major League Baseball history are in the 300 club. Name the players using these clues. So on the next slide, you're going to have clues.
Okay.
Okay. So using these clues, who are in the 300 club?
So I'm thinking number 1 is Bonds.
Bonds is 1.
762 gives it away. 3. Yep. Mays.
Mays is the 3rd one.
3rd. Okay.
Yep. 660 and 338 stolen bases.
Let's see. Okay. So we got Bonds, Mays. Say Ruth wouldn't have stolen that many bases.
Nope.
He stole a few, but not that many.
Right.
What about Musial?
Musial's not on there. Nope.
Oh, it's right. He still had many bases. Say Pujols wouldn't have been on there. Didn't steal any bases.
Nope.
Ricky didn't hit that many home runs, did he?
Nope.
Didn't think so.
I don't think he stole that many bases either. That's a joke.
Say the stolen base numbers look a little low for Ricky to be there.
I think you could probably combine all of those stolen base totals and still be short of Ricky's total.
I say when you steal 100 a year, you get there pretty fast. But Ricky didn't hit enough home runs.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you number 2. Seattle, Texas, and New York are the 3 teams.
Seattle, Texas, and New York.
In that order.
Oh, A-Rod.
A-Rod, yep. A-Rod's number 2. Number 4 is the Hawk.
Oh, Dawson?
Yeah, Andre Dawson's number 4. Number 5 is a guy that got a managerial job but never actually managed a game. He got fired before because there was a scandal the year before.
Oh, Beltran?
Yeah, Beltran's number 5.
Huh, all right.
Number 6 is a little bit tougher one, but his son is on this list. Kind of give you one. Give me.
Wait, what? His son is on? You said his son is on this list?
Yeah. So, whose dad was also a really good baseball player?
Oh, Bobby Bonds.
Bobby Bonds. Yep. Good.
I was like, who have we gone over that had a dad that played MLB? And
Yeah.
I'm going back up the list. I'm like, oh, duh, Bonds.
Yep. And then number 7. Do you want to try to get these 7 and 8? 7 and 8's a little bit tougher.
Yeah, that's a lot of teams. What era?
The 90s for number 7, and then 89 to 2007 for number 8.
Reigns?
No. Number 7 played mostly. You'll remember him for the Reds.
All right, who is it?
Reggie Sanders.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Reggie Sanders sneaks on the list. And then number 8 is a crazy one. Like, obviously barely made the list with 304, right? He played for every single NL West team at one point in his career. Center fielder.
Played for every NL West team?
At some point in his career, yes.
And what was the era?
89 to 2007.
Oh, wow. So played for quite a while, too.
Yeah. I mean, he was a good ball player.
Boy, I have no idea.
A lefty center fielder. Lefty center fielder.
Finley? No, not Finley.
Yeah, Steve Finley. Yeah. Barely cracked it with 304 and 320. But yeah.
Yeah, he was a guy that just kept hanging around, and you'd look up and each year he put up some numbers.
Yep. So yeah, those are your 8. Pretty cool.
Wow.
So yeah, there's your list.
Beltran, Bonds. I mean, Reggie Sanders. I mean, there's no way.
Yeah.
I mean, like I probably would have guessed Eric Young before Reggie Sanders.
I could have. I think I picked honestly like 5 off this list. And Reggie Sanders snuck in. I had no idea. I didn't think Steve Finley had enough career home runs to get on the bottom of the list. But,
no, me neither.
Yeah. And I think,
wow.
Yeah. And I think Andre Dawson kind of snuck up on me too. But I had the 2 Bonds, Rodriguez, Mays, and Beltran. But the other 3, I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, those are not, I mean, Sanders and Finley are kind of shockers. Andre Dawson, when you think about it, I was like, no, that one makes sense. But I wouldn't have like picked him out.
Right. Exactly. So.
I mean, his name, as I'm running through names, like his name never came into the equation.
Right.
Interesting.
But yeah.
That was cool.
Pretty cool. Yeah. I like that one. All right. I think that's all I had for trivia this week. So, all right. A couple things. We're going to head home here to wrap up the show for this week. Jorge Lopez, after that whole scene with the Mets where he tosses his glove in the stands and they like DFA him before he even gets back to the clubhouse, signed with the Cubs. So that's a little bullpen help for the Chicago Cubs, which, we said at the beginning of the show, the Cubs are going to be looking to make a push here. So it's not a huge signing, but it helps.
No, but the Cubs need everything. They need arms, they need bats, they need everything.
Yep, absolutely. So that definitely helps them there.
Sure does.
As you said, you released a video earlier about Jose Abreu. How about you take the reins on that one?
Yeah, so the Astros released Jose Abreu a year and a half into a 3-year contract. They're basically paying him $30.8 million to go away. What happens now is that Abreu can be signed by any team for the major league minimum because the Astros are going to be paying him. So I don't think we've seen the end of Jose Abreu yet, but he was hitting 124, 2 home runs. The bat looked slow. He had an okay season last year, like slow start. Then he kind of came around and was okay. He got off to another slow start this year, never came out of it, went down to the minors, didn't help. And ultimately the Astros decided it was better to play somebody else and just pay him to go away, which is this guy was the AL MVP in what, 2020?
2020, yeah.
So, this is a guy who's only 3.5 years removed from an MVP award.
And a perennial all-star in Chicago. Yeah. The dude was a solid beast player in Chicago.
And he's played good defense right to the end with them. Like he made a great play a couple nights ago before he got released. He could not, for whatever reason, string it together there. And I do think that the bat looked slow. He looked like he was struggling to catch up. So there could be that he's lost a little bit. But boy, oh boy, to go to 124 and get released for a guy who the Astros put a full court press on to sign. Like they identified him as like the number one guy they had to have.
He's also 37 years old.
And the other part of it too is where he's 37 that we think. But again, like we found with some of these guys, like we don't exactly know how old these guys coming out of the South America are.
Yeah, who was the first? It was Miguel Tejada, right? That came out after, and we found out that he was older than he really was, or something like that.
He was like 3 or 4 years older than he actually had told anybody.
Yeah.
And so I mean, for all we know, Abreu maybe actually is the age he says he is, but his skills at the plate have declined so fast that it makes you wonder, like, what's happening there. Yeah. And down in the minors, he didn't make any progress.
Yeah.
So it's clear that there's a problem there, and the Astros just decided rather than continue to drag this out, they were going to make a move.
And the Astros are in desperation mode at this point. They're in a position that they haven't been in quite some time.
I mean,
so
long time. And they're happy to play young players and just get Abreu off the roster.
Yeah, their first base prospect is actually pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Singleton's been in there a little bit.
Yeah, they've been mixing it up. They've been mixing it up.
So,
but I think they're taking the approach of, we've already got enough holes, we can't have another. And thankfully, Yordan Alvarez is coming back around. Kyle Tucker has had a massive stretch here. So like the offense is coming back, and they've definitely improved. But I mean, he's just been a massive black hole in that lineup, and they can't afford to have that.
Yeah. And then also this weekend, Alex Verdugo hits an absolute shot to center field and homers in his debut back to Fenway. And he went around the bases and he let Fenway Park know it too, dude. He was
my goodness,
beating his chest. He was pumped, which I mean, I'm sure is a pretty great feeling, because the way he left the Red Sox organization was not great, not good. I mean, it was bad.
It was a really weird end to his time in Boston.
Yeah. And that reaction makes me feel like it was something like they just didn't want him. They didn't like him as a player or someone in the clubhouse. Because, like, you don't act like that in your game back unless something sour happened. Right. So, I mean, we don't know the details. They kept that pretty hush-hush. They were just saying that, like, hey, we're moving on. We're,
Yeah, the only rumors we heard was that he and Cora did not get along. That's why we saw Chaim Bloom in September, like, out in right field talking to him, trying to kind of calm him down before Chaim Bloom got the heave-ho. But apparently he and Cora had beef. They didn't get along. Cora didn't want him. They traded him.
Yeah.
And he's actually had a really good season for himself in New York. So good for him. And boy, did he soak up that moment.
As he should. Listen, if there's a team that I felt did me wrong and I came back and I torched them like that, dude, I'd make sure I let him know too. I mean, and he's just that type of player.
Oh, he's very emotional.
I mean, it was tough as Red Sox fans. It was tough to see the player go, because Alex Verdugo was very steady for the Boston Red Sox last year, and a team that has stunk for the last few years and hasn't done anything to make themselves better. He was the bright spot, and at that moment, he was like making the Mookie Betts trade not as hard to swallow. Like, is it still hard to swallow? Oh, absolutely. I would still love Mookie Betts here. Broken hand and all. He's still better than half the players on our team if he was still playing with a broken hand. But he was making it less and less horrendous for us.
Yeah, I mean,
he was steady.
You came out of it feeling like you got one good piece back. That you knew you were never getting Mookie Betts back in terms of value returned. But if Connor Wong can keep playing a solid catcher, and Verdugo is your everyday outfielder, and they were both playing at a decently high level, you feel like that was an okay trade.
Right.
Now all you got left is Connor Wong, who's been great behind the plate, no doubt there. But Verdugo is kind of the headliner of that Mookie trade, and then that just kind of closes the door on that whole time, that whole era.
Yeah. Where would you rank Connor Wong in today's catchers? You think he's like average middle ground catcher?
I think he's middle of the pack to the higher side of the middle. He's in probably that 10 to 15 ranges. I mean, that's a position that when you look around baseball, there's a lot of. I mean, we saw Trevino get exposed badly last night by the Red Sox.
Yeah.
That's a. I feel like that position rides this wave. Like, we had this era, this whole generation of great catchers. They've all retired. Then we kind of had this lack of catchers. And then you had a few pop up, but it's not a position you have consistently good players at. And I think that Connor Wong, I'd say, yeah, he's in that kind of 10 to 15 range and climbing. He's one of the few guys who's on the way up.
So, I mean, top 3 catchers in the game right now. Who do you think of?
I mean, it depends on what you're rating them on, but I mean,
overall, just overall.
Realmuto is clearly in there.
Yeah.
I mean, Patrick Bailey in San Francisco has been really impressive. To me, I don't know that he's in that echelon yet, but when it comes to catching a game, there may not be a better catcher to do it.
Gabby Moreno is working his way up there.
Gabby Moreno's another young guy on the way up. Wong's a guy on the way up.
Moreno's got a cannon.
He does. Like, if I had to pick the top 3 catchers, I feel like it's kind of.
Would you put Cal Raleigh at the top?
What's that?
Cal Raleigh?
I think Cal Raleigh's in that probably top 5. I would probably go Sean Murphy and Realmuto as kind of the top 2.
Travis d'Arnaud, and I mean offensively, when he's in there.
Yeah, you've got Langoliers out in Oakland who's making a case. Like
Jonah Heim.
Jonah Heim. It's hard. It's hard to pick a top 3. I feel like you've got.
Contreras.
I feel like you have. The Contreras and they're both good for different reasons. I feel like you've got kind of Murphy and Realmuto are kind of 1 and 2, and you can pick what order they come in. Then you got probably 7 or 8 guys that are like just kind of like bunched in behind them that fill out your top 10. And you can put them in any order you want because they're all good for different reasons.
Yeah.
And then I think, Connor Wong sits kind of just outside of that group looking in, and may find his way into that group.
Adley Rutschman. How can we forget about him?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Adley Rutschman. Duh. He'd be your third.
Yeah. So,
and then you got everybody else just kind of like crams into the next 6 or 7 slots to fill out a top 10. And
Sal Perez. I mean, there are some decent catchers out there that.
Yeah, and Perez is towards the end of his career, so he's not what he used to be.
He's still hitting 3.
I know,
though.
But his behind the plate, he's not quite as
right,
quite as agile as he used to be. He's a bit of a.
I mean, he's 36 to 37, right? Like he's
got a lot of miles in those legs.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. I couldn't catch if I had a chair back there right now.
Yeah, no,
no
completely
thanks,
understood.
Yeah,
I mean, you're kind of your 3 or 4 elite level catchers and a 6 or 7 guys that are kind of in that next tier, and then I think Connor Wong slots in behind them, and kind of on the way up.
Yeah,
and then you got the other side of it where you've got guys like Trevino who have been kind of on the way down the last couple of years, and Maldonado who's, I mean, Alejandro Kirk who's fallen way off the map. Like you got a lot of guys that were in that group that have fallen out of it.
Yeah. I can only imagine how tough it is to sustain your hitting while catching that many games too. I mean, your legs are just gone. I don't care if they're, how strong you are. After a while, just knocked over my mic hanging with me.
Got very excited right out.
After a while, there's a lot of wear and tear. Like it is what it is, So then they say Maldonado is one of the best defensive ones because pitchers love throwing to him. He calls a great game. He handles the pitching staff. And that's why the Red Sox loved Varitek for so long, because he had such a vast knowledge of every single pitcher on that staff. There's more to catching than just hitting and catching the ball and throwing runners out. It is the intricate part of the game that not a lot of people understand or they think is boring.
Well, and
but yeah,
I mean, rating a catcher is hard too. Like I look at, let's look at the top 5 catchers in the NL right now. You got the Contrerases, JT Realmuto, Will Smith, Sean Murphy.
Will Smith, forgot about that name too. It's a good one.
But you got some of these guys who are much more defensively minded. A couple of these guys that are much more offensive, and a couple that are a blend. It's hard to pick a catcher because you really have to decide what kind of catcher you want. What's more important to you? How they call a game, what they bring to the plate. Because you don't generally get both. You look in the American League, you got Adley, you got Sal Perez, you got Jose Trevino, you got Danny Jansen with the Blue Jays, Jonah Heim with the Rangers. Heim is much more, I would say he might be a little bit more balanced than the other guys because he's very good behind the plate and has some pop. Sal Perez is not as good behind the plate, but has some pop. Rutschman can do both, but he's also on the younger side. Trevino is more of a defensive first. It's like, how do how do you compare those guys when they're so different? And that's the struggle with that position is what do you value? I look at a guy like Connor Wong who plays very good defense, very good arm, and has some pop. So like he's got a little bit of both. So to me, he's worth more. He's worth more than a Trevino to me because Trevino doesn't really give you the offensive piece. On occasion he does, but he's really more of a defensive catcher.
But in that Yankees lineup, Trevino doesn't necessarily have to provide that pop because you got Soto and Judge and Mayhew and
works out great.
Right.
So like, it is. Catcher to me is a very, very subjective position.
Yeah. And it is. It's a fit from team to team. I think that was a perfect way to put it. Like, like he fits on that team because they need a decent backstop, not necessarily a guy that goes out and also hits, 330 every year, Joe Mauer. Right. So
yeah. And you're right. Your offensively oriented catchers are few and far between.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think Connor Wong gives you a good blend, and because of that, in my mind, he's got more value because he can do both.
Right.
Maldonado, by far the best defensive catcher in baseball, can't hit to save his life. What do you do with that? The Astros gave up on it. It was just the defense was so good, but it wasn't good enough to overcome the fact that he was a black hole at the plate.
Yeah, which crazy. But yeah, I've never actually really broke it down and been like, it is. It's really hard to rank catchers because do you do it defensive metric? Do you do it offensive metric? Do you do it a combination of both?
Right.
Or what? It depends on what the team needs in that situation for sure.
Yeah. And to me, if a catcher can't play the position, well, the offense to me doesn't matter.
Right.
So that's like, I look at a guy like Sal Perez, great offensively, still good defensively, not like he used to be, but he's now reaching a point where defensively he's beginning to become, he's bordering on, is he helping you or hurting you defensively?
Yeah.
He can still throw, he can still move, but he's not what he used to be.
And he's massive too. Isn't he like
huge
6'7"?
He's a big boy. And Adley Rutschman is another one of those guys, blend, very good defensively, not elite defensively, but he's very good. But he hits.
Yeah. And that always sells. Hitting sells.
It does. And the Orioles need the bat. So that works great in their lineup.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Astros won with Maldonado for years, hitting $150.
Right.
Because they didn't need the offense, but they needed somebody who could catch a good game, call a good game, and throw base runners out.
Yeah.
Which he did.
Well, you don't need offense when Yordan Alvarez hits a 3-run bomb every other inning in the playoffs. So
it's kind of irrelevant at that point.
Yeah, crazy. So all right. The last thing I have is hang with us. We're almost done with these horrendous City Connect jerseys.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers just released their new, are they calling it City Connect? Is it just a uniform release? I don't really know, but they're calling it the Dodgers Dreamers uniform. And
yeah, the headline called it like the second City Connect.
Okay. So it is technically the City Connect.
I think they're calling it that.
So again, the hat, I don't mind. It's like a cursive D and it has the LA symbol like in the middle of it. It's pretty simple. I don't mind the hat. The jerseys, again, don't do anything for me. And no. I'm just ready. Let's put a cap on it, tie a bow on it. We're done. But we still got 1, 2. I think we got 2 more releases, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's 2. The A's, which who knows what city they're even going to connect with. Who's the second?
That might actually be it. I think it was the Dodgers.
Be the A's. You might be right.
Because we were waiting for Toronto and they released last week or the week before. So
that's right. So the Twins are out, Toronto's out. Yeah, so it might just be the A's now.
Yeah. So
which fine.
But man, yeah.
They're gonna City Connect to what? Chicago? I mean, doesn't matter.
It's Sacramento.
The city hates them, so
yeah. I don't know. That's gonna be an interesting one, but watch, that's gonna be the best one out of the whole set.
Well, I mean, we love that Kelly Green. I hope they do something with it.
And they have to, man. You can't go a different color with the A's. Got to keep the gold. Got to keep the green. Do something with that, please. So.
Yep.
All right, that's all I had for tonight. Do you have anything that you want to add?
So I just a reminder to everybody: June 20th. That's the Rickwood game, the Negro League tribute game at Rickwood is the 20th. So it's later this week.
That's Thursday.
Yes, they're doing. There's a lot of events leading up to it and a lot of coverage for it, so that'll be a lot of fun. In sad news, Mike Brumley, former player and coach who was involved with a lot of current major leaguers, died in a car accident. There's a number of current players who had come out and made statements, teams that made statements, but a guy that was very well respected around the league as an infielder and infield coach. Austin Riley, basically credited his career to Mike Brumley. So big loss for baseball. And then lastly, we have our first All-Star ballot update of the season. So in the American League, currently your leaders are at first base, Vlad Jr. At second base, Jose Altuve. At third base, Jose Ramirez. I think they're going to get that one right.
Yeah.
Shortstop, Gunnar Henderson by a lot over Bobby Witt Jr. Outfield, you've got
as it should be right now, to be completely honest.
Agreed.
Gunner's been ridiculous.
He has been ridiculous. Outfield, you got Judge, Soto, and Tucker are your three leading vote getters in the outfield.
Yep.
Behind the plate, it is Adley. DH would be Yordan Alvarez.
I honestly don't have a problem with that lineup.
No, I don't mind any of those.
Is there another first baseman you would plug in instead of Vladdy at this point in the AL?
I mean, the other guys getting votes are Ryan Mountcastle, who's deserving, Josh Naylor, who's deserving, Rizzo, probably not.
Well, Nathaniel he's hurt, so he won't go anyways.
Yeah, Nathaniel Lowe. But I mean, I think Mountcastle and Naylor are good alternates. And Guerrero's only about 50,000 votes up on Ryan Mountcastle right now, anyways. So,
but he's hitting 300 or close to 300, isn't he?
Yeah, and Naylor's a couple 100,000, almost 300,000 behind those guys. So,
gotcha.
There's no way Naylor catches him, but Mountcastle's close.
Yeah.
So I mean, nothing here I disagree with. I do think it's funny at third base. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa is the fifth vote getter in the American League. I found that interesting.
Yeah.
And then your American League shortstops, it's Gunnar, who's 200,000 votes up on Bobby Witt Jr., and then it's Volpe, Seager, and Bichette.
Yeah. So I mean,
in the National League, first base, Bryce Harper, it's not even close. He's 400,000 votes up on Freddie Freeman. Yeah. And then Freddie Freeman's almost 600,000 votes up on Matt Olson. So it's the Harper Freeman show at first base.
As it should be.
Yeah. Second base, it's Luis Arraez in a nail biter right now. 5,000 votes separate him and Ketel Marte. Third base.
Ketel.
Third base, Alec Boehm has got almost 800,000 more votes than Manny Machado.
Thank you.
So, yeah, that's all. I mean, he's over 1 million votes, which is crazy. Shortstop, Mookie Betts, followed by Trey Turner.
Well, there'll be Trey Turner to start there because Mookie won't be back.
Right. And then the outfield here has me scratching my head. Your vote getters are Jurickson Profar, Christian Yelich, and Fernando Tatis Jr. And Fernando Jr. is just like 20,000, 30,000 votes over Teoscar Hernandez. Profar at 900,000 votes has me scratching my head.
Profar's had a great year. The last 2 years, he's been pretty well.
But
I wonder where he's getting the vote.
That's exactly where my mind was going. Is where are those votes coming from to be at 900,000?
Yeah,
that one had me scratching my head. And then catcher, you got William Contreras, who's got a very comfortable lead over Real Muto. Yeah. And then your DH with over 1 million votes is Shohei.
Shocker there.
He's 500,000 votes over Marcell Ozuna.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't disagree with any of these. I found a couple of them a little bit surprising, but I think for the most part, they're about what I'd expect.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So, but unfortunately, there's a lot of races that are really probably already over.
Yeah.
Because it's not that close.
Give me Ketel Marte to start at second base. If you guys have not watched this guy play, I know he's hidden in Arizona there, but he's electric. Every time he is on the field, he makes big hit after big hit. He's great defensively. He's one of my favorite players in the league to watch right now. So if you have not seen him, do yourself a favor and tune into a Diamondbacks game and watch this kid play. He's awesome.
He is. Yeah, so I'm gonna drop the link in the chat if anybody wants to go and check the rankings. They can go deeper and see everybody else that's in there too. But that is our first check-in on the All-Star ballot.
Nice. All right. Anything else?
That is it.
All right. So thanks for tuning in tonight. And Rickwood game, keep your eye out. Maybe we pop on for a special appearance. Maybe not. I don't know. I'd be down to do that.
So we'll have to see.
So we'll have to see. So stay tuned. But again, thanks for chiming in. Thanks for watching. Before you go, make sure you like and follow us on Facebook and follow on Instagram. You can also subscribe on YouTube. Also listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Share our reels, comment on our reels. We love the interaction. We're really active in answering the comments, especially when we put the trivia questions out. We love putting those out for you guys, and it seems like you guys enjoy it. So we'll keep them coming. We'll keep them pumping out. And thanks for your support, and we will see you next week at 8 p.m., if not sooner.